Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss a recent study on current periodization, testing, and monitoring practices among strength and conditioning coaches. The main idea is to understand how coaches actually plan, adjust, test, and monitor training in real-world practice. This is important because there is often a gap between what periodization looks like in textbooks and what happens on the gym floor. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next sports science breakdowns. Now let's look at what this study found. Periodization is often presented as a clean and predictable process. In theory, training progresses in a structured way, athletes adapt as expected, and the plan moves forward without major disruptions. But real-world coaching is not always that simple. Athletes deal with fatigue, stress, travel, competition schedules, injuries, motivation changes, and many other factors. So the practical question is this: how do strength and conditioning coaches actually adjust training when reality does not follow the perfect plan? That is the practical gap this study helps us understand. The study was published by Washif and colleagues in 2025. It used an exploratory descriptive survey design. The sample included 58 strength and conditioning practitioners. These professionals came from 9 Southeast and East Asian countries and represented 25 different sports or events. It is important to remember that the data were self-reported. So this study does not prove that one method is better than another. Instead, it shows how coaches report using periodization, testing, monitoring, and programming strategies in applied high-performance settings. One of the main findings is that coaches rarely rely on only one textbook model of periodization. Instead, many coaches use hybrid or multiple models. This means they may combine linear, block, undulating, or other approaches depending on the objective, the sport, and the phase of the season. For example, a coach may use a block structure during one phase and a more flexible or undulating structure during another phase. The practical principle is this: adaptation matters more than rigid tradition. A periodization model should serve the athlete and the training objective, not the other way around. The study also highlights the importance of flexible programming. 43% of the surveyed practitioners reported that they regularly use flexible models. In practice, this means that the training plan is not treated as something fixed and untouchable. The coach may scale the session up, maintain the planned workload, or scale it down depending on athlete readiness. This readiness can be influenced by fatigue, technical quality, recovery, stress, soreness, or the athlete's immediate response to training. So flexible programming is not a lack of planning. It is planned adaptability. What drives these training adjustments? According to the study, athlete feedback was the most common factor, reported by 90% of practitioners. Coach self-observation was also highly used, reported by 78%. Technical execution was reported by 74%. This is a key point. Even with the growth of technology, coaching still depends heavily on human interaction. Conversations, observation, body language, movement quality, and athlete perception remain central to decision-making. Technology can help, but it does not replace coaching judgment. The study also identified the main challenges coaches face when programming training. The biggest challenge was managing fatigue, reported by 72% of practitioners. This fatigue may come from sport practice, competition, travel, academic or professional stress, and life outside training. The second challenge was optimizing the training stimulus, reported by 53%. Specificity to the demands of the sport was reported by 50%. Training adherence was reported by 47%. These results show that programming is not only about sets, reps, and load. It is also about managing the athlete's context. Deloading and tapering were also common practices. 95% of practitioners reported using deloading phases either regularly or when needed. 91% reported using tapering strategies before competition. These strategies are used to manage fatigue, promote recovery, and help athletes express performance when it matters. However, the way coaches manipulate intensity, volume, and frequency depends on the sport and the competitive context. So there is no single perfect taper or deload for every situation. The strategy should match the athlete, the sport, and the competition schedule. Testing was widely used to assess whether the program was working. 90% of practitioners reported using physical testing results to assess program effectiveness. Maximum strength was typically assessed 2 to 4 times per year. The most common exercises were the bench press, reported by 88%, the back squat, reported by 86%, and the deadlift, reported by 59%. This is interesting because even with new methods and technologies, traditional strength exercises still remain common standards for assessment. The key point is that testing should be useful, practical, and feasible within the sport schedule. This slide shows an important contrast: high-touch versus high-tech monitoring. 71% of practitioners use conversational assessment to evaluate pre-training readiness. 46% used subjective wellness tools. On the technology side, 23% used velocity devices and 21% used force plates. This does not mean technology is unimportant. It means that technology is still secondary for many coaches when compared with direct communication and practical observation. The best approach may be to combine both. Use human interaction to understand the athlete, and use technology when it adds useful information to the decision-making process. When tracking training load, the study found that simple methods were widely used. Volume load was used by 81% of practitioners. This is commonly calculated as weight multiplied by sets multiplied by repetitions. Session RPE was used by 72%. This method combines the athlete's rating of perceived exertion with session duration. These tools are simple, affordable, and easy to apply across teams. They may not capture everything, but they can provide useful information for monitoring trends and guiding training decisions. Let's summarize the main practical implications. For periodization, coaches often use hybrid models. The implication is that the model should match the training objective. For programming, coaches use flexible adjustments. The implication is that the plan should adapt to daily athlete readiness. For monitoring, conversations and feedback are central. The implication is that human interaction still matters. For load tracking, volume load and session RPE are commonly used. The implication is that simple tools can guide smart decisions when applied consistently. The final message is this: effective strength and conditioning practice is not only about choosing a periodization model, it is about combining structured planning, athlete feedback, testing, monitoring, fatigue management, and practical decision making. The coach needs a plan, but the coach also needs the ability to adjust that plan. In real-world practice, the best program is not always the most complex one. It is the one that fits the athlete, the sport, the schedule, and the available resources. If this video was useful, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and turn on notifications. Share this video with coaches, students, and professionals who work with training prescription and sports performance. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.